No 3D printing or foam or clay was used in the construction of this Dwarven mead hall / shrine to Moradin. The personal challenge I put on myself to see how far I could get using only various types of cardboard. I also have an incredible hack to share with you for quickly achieving these Dwarven architectural features. The idea for this project came from two places that happened on the same night. Number one, I looked over and saw this piece that I made a year and a half ago or something. I was never happy with it. It's kind of a waste of this cool hammer. This is from a dollar store toy action figure thing. Obviously it's giant scale, but it's kind of underused here. And secondly is these beads right here that I got from my daughter's little jewelry making kit that she hasn't touched in months. These are ready-made, perfect Dwarven style beer steins. They're even almost perfect scale. Now, unlike most projects, I'm not going to sit down at the end and kick off this opening bit. I truly haven't started yet, so the first step, I guess, is to extricate this hammer. Okay, step one is done. Now, I'm also thinking I want the results of this project to be reproducible by anyone watching the video, and not everyone in the world has access to XPS foam. So I'm thinking I'm going to impose a constraint on myself and say no XPS foam. I will allow foam board, maybe, if needed, but for the most part, we're going to stick to cardboard and chipboard and all the old classics. And remember, if you're a 3D printer, you must check out Heroes Horde and their outstanding selection of models for your tabletop gaming, including the original True Tiles lines. Oh boy, I got a lot of footage on this project. How do I even start to carve this up? Easy things first. The hammer. I want this to be Moradin's hammer, or a facsimile thereof. I'm going to base it in gray and then top down zenithal with a lighter gray. Army Painter is a friend of the channel. They make my favorite paints in the whole world. The new Fanatic range brushes on great and goes through an airbrush as well. I'm going to pick out some features with a copper and then wash the whole thing down. The airbrush also makes easy work of the cups. I'm going to hit them with a silver and then use only the air to speed dry them and get those washed down with dark tone as well. To nail down that Dwarven architecture, to make a thing look like that reads as Dwarven, there's a few features we can hone in on. Hit Google image search for Dwarven Hall or Dwarven Throne. You'll see some motifs show up. There's no curves. It's all straight lines and angles. Stacked triangles. You tend to see a lot of this. Simple primitive shapes that sort of intersect each other. And lastly, braiding, sort of a Celtic braiding, overlapping, entwined sort of thing. Now, if you have a steady hand and are good at painting and have the patience, you could paint that on, but ideally we would get that as a texture. And I don't want a 3D print, so after some thought, what I found was these fancy ribbons. These happen to be for Christmas time, but you can find those like doily ribbons. Not sure how else to describe it. They're just fancy ribbons. You could find them at like Joann's or Michael's or whatever in your part of the world, the crafting store or the fabric supply store is. Now they are soft. They are cloth basically, so they're going to drink in fluids. But that's easy to work around. You could dredge these through white glue or Mod Podge. In my case, what I'm going to do is a heavy base coat with Mod Podge first. That should get all the threads to drink in that basically glue, which will then harden and crispify this, and then it should be paintable and dry brushable. There'll probably be like a 3 to 4 hour dry time, but that's okay. So yeah, hack for Dwarven architecture features. And I'm gonna do it again for Elven architecture. I found this ribbon and I'm excited to use it, but that's for another day and another video. These two images in particular spoke to me. You'll see a lot of ideas stolen from them in the final product here. When I need to build up bulk, but not using XPS foam, I use double corrugated cardboard. Even single corrugated would work. But a knife, corrugated cardboard, and hot glue, that's what I hope awaits me at the pearly gates. I love the feel, I love the smell. I spent all afternoon down in the workshop assembling the base of this archway. I like to clad or cover up the corrugation with a thinner cardstock like cereal box. And an advantage of cardboard that I think is little used is that it does have a paper fibrous texture. It's built-in detail. It does dry brush pretty well. Just don't glob on your base coat too thick. Alright, so I made some pillars. And I know some of you are going to ask, so I'm going to try and get a template put together, a downloadable PDF. Here I'm working with Graphics Medium chipboard. This is that thick grayish brownish slab you'll find at the back of a legal pad, but you can buy it in bulk like I do if you want. There's links in the video description below. Anyway, the motif I'm going to go with is wherever this ribbon filigree is going to be used, I cut out a channel. Then take another thin bit of cardstock and glue it to the underside, and now I've got a recess where that ribbon will be. A modest coat of white glue spread with your finger works great for chipboard. It dries almost instantly once you contact the pieces together. And here we go with those pointed shapes. They're pentagons, I guess, but decreasing in size, and you stack them up to get that Dwarven look. Measure and cut them en masse. Easy as can be. These open sections on the corner are a little tricky, but with a bit of measuring and just cutting some chipboard and using white glue to set it in place, it actually ended up way easier than I expected it to be. I did not want to use hot glue for risk of having ugly blobs showing or seeping through. Now the caps. The top and bottoms of the pillars, these are obviously squares, and there's a smaller square of corrugated cardboard sandwiched in between, again with the corrugation covered up. This is smaller so that it creates a channel, and this is where the ribbon filigree will go. For these, I used super glue. And in fact, you don't need to do the whole side, just a little dab at each corner, and then you can pull it taut, wrap it around, another dab on that side, and so on. Otherwise you'd be burning through super glue, but it's really not necessary. Plus, I know with the Mod Podge coming up, that's going to also further help affix them in place. I did not need accelerant for this. The super glue cured instantly. Filling some tables, so the concept here is identical to the pillar caps. 2 slabs of chipboard, sandwiching a smaller version of that shape out of corrugated to give it some thickness and create a channel. And once again, the filigree goes in there. I can't quite explain why, but I'm just feeling like I want to do a more muted antique gold. So I got all kind of options here on the shelf, different brands, but here's one that's been sitting there for like 5 years from Folk Art called Treasure Gold Antique Gold. It's not a yellowish, glorious, greedy sort of gold. It's like muted. It's a little more grim. It's going to give some depth to the piece. So I'm going to use this to paint up all of the filigree. So again, first, all of this cloth ribbon filigree gets doused, and I mean globbed on, with Mod Podge that I've mixed in some black paint. Helps you know where you've painted. But after that, then I go with this antique gold. And once again, I sort of slop it on there really thick, not worried about it. And then after that, I go in with the gray. Specifically, this is Folk Art Ash. And I dry brush all of that stone with a lighter gray. This is called Slate. And then I wash everything, including the filigree, with black. This is a bit of black acrylic craft paint, nothing else, no ink, nothing special, just paint and water. Thinned it down to the point that you see the coverage that you see here, and it will dry much subtler. Yeah, so I think I will dub this Dwarven ribbon. Like, I should make strips and strips of it to just have on hand. Anyway, I don't know about you, but this is the part of a project where I usually get hung up and it goes on for weeks and weeks. I've built the main structure thing and it's time to really detail it up. It's a blank canvas, but I don't want to mess it up. But I also want to make sure I take every good idea I can find on Google image search and really not squander this opportunity. Now, recently I've learned that when this happens, the best thing to do is force myself to glue something down. So I'm going to cut this up and attach it and just start brainstorming in real time. And a throne. I'm stealing completely from this image right here to build a throne. Reverse engineered dimensions, stacked layers of chipboard, and I made the seat large enough so that a 1-inch based miniature could be placed there. That should just about do it. Happy little gem. Banners. I'm feeling some banners. So I got into Photoshop and putzed around for like 10 minutes and printed up a bunch of these. They'll be mounted on a wooden dowel, which is capped with some beads that just so happen to fit and look very Dwarven. I think a technique that is not used nearly enough out there is washing down things that you've print and pasted. Print and paste is great, but it's totally possible to take some Army Painter soft tone or even just watered down acrylic craft paint and wash that paper down. I mean, look at this. This came out fantastic and it required almost no effort. I wanted to do something with these alcoves, and then I remembered these axes I saw in the craft store aisle and picked up. Didn't have a plan for them at the time, just knew I needed to have them in my life. So glad I nabbed them at that time. They'll go great here. I think a big part of the reason I get away with this for this particular project is Dwarven stonework is immaculate. They are master stoneworkers. So having all this deep slate and granite cut and polished smooth works better here than if you had, say, a crude dungeon or a castle wall. Another benefit, all these pieces are insanely durable, being cardboard and chipboard and hot glue. In fact, I accidentally stepped on a pillar that had fallen on the floor and it had no effect. If this is your first time here or exposure to this sub-hobby of D&D, you should know there's over 40,000 of us doing this exact sort of thing. Come find us on Facebook, the Tabletop Crafters Guild. My recommended tools and supplies are in the description below, and I have my own personal Facebook page and Patreon and all that stuff. I've also published some D&D modules. They're only $5, and they're pretty good. They're not great, but they're, fine. So if you want to support the channel, there's a bunch of ways there. Anyway, I'll put some recommended videos here on the screen, and I thank you for watching today. I'm Wylock. Make things and play games.